This is like a part 2 of this video. I advise you to watch this video before this one. It's on my channel. Part 1 is an hour-long video, but it's more details and have so many ammunition that you can use to destroy those Wuz Kangz. First, let's start with gypsies. Every time I listen to those wannabe race expert, they always talk about gypsies in Europe as if that's the only place they exist. Here a video from 1963.
But first, a couple of things about gypsies. 1,000 years ago, they left Pakistan and started to roam all over the earth. When they came to Egypt, now called the United Arab Republic, they took the name gypsies. Egyptian? Gypsies. Then they separated, and some of them moved up and across Europe. The others moved across Africa. Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and eventually a group of gypsies arrived in Granada, in Spain.
Why do you think only those European countries have gypsies? And where do you think those gypsies came from? Do you think they jumped from India all the way to Europe and didn't go to any other place? Those idiots think that continents are a race. Maybe I'll need to Google Europe, Africa, and Asia and see the definition of them. Where did they say race? Why, when they film a movie about Troy, they put a bunch of white people. Where do you think Troy is in? Do you think it's in Europe? Do you think white people speak the same language? Do you think white people have a map to know where to go and where to not go, and where is Europe on the map? Do you think white agreed that they don't go outside of Europe? So they agreed on that, but they didn't agree on speaking the same language. There's one thing every race agree on that and want, and that is land. The second stupid argument I hear is race is tied to the weather. Race come from your DNA, not the weather. Go to Google and search Yakutia, Russia.
Ethnicity is native Russian. It's called Yakut. We live in the far east of Russia. And our physical traits, as you can see, are Asian. I study in the States, and this guy asks me, oh, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Russia. And he's like, no, I mean, like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Russia, motherfucker. And he's like, okay, then where are your parents from? And I say, imagine, they're from Russia too. And he's like, well, I thought that you were Asian. Fucka, motherfucker, твою мака, I am Asian. I don't know how your brain works, but you think if I'm from Russia, I cannot be Asian when I'm clearly am Asian, and vice versa? If you studied your geography a little bit, you will know that half of Russia, the biggest country in the world, it's really hard to miss it on the map, is in Asia. You're the Russian passport, bitch. And I got no ancestors immigrated. Don't mix your history with my history.
Since we hit two birds with one rock, disproving the weather argument and proving how countries are not a race, here another example. Red Indians who lived in a cold weather, please explain to me why they are not white. They are so stupid they think that if you put this person in a cold weather, he's going to change his look. So you think he's hair eyes and his flat nose going to change because of weather. So he's DNA going to change because of the weather. This is as stupid as saying if we gave him Swedish nationality, he's going to turn into a blonde person with blue eyes. I know why you said that. Here a better explanation. It's the only area that have Caucasian that isn't in the Mediterranean region. And because of low IQ people, they thought there's different type of Caucasians. By the way, every race in the world doesn't have that. Mongoloid don't have that. Red Indians didn't have that. And other races didn't have that, but Caucasian are the only race that have 8 different type. Just because they exist in Europe or any area that the DNA say Caucasian, that doesn't mean they are Caucasian. Because the DNA follow the indigenous or the original people to that land, not the people who live right now. It's like saying white people that live in the US are Red Indians because the DNA say Red Indians. If you read race definition, they said that those races create groups or tribes, and they go as further as they can go until they get forced to stop. This is the reason why people wear certain dress or have certain tattoos or paint their face to identify that they are from certain tribes. And this is also the reason why people who are close geographically tend to look like each other. The Mediterranean region have multiple races because it used to be a very popular place. There's a reason Italians look different than each other. You can take 10 people from Italy, and they all look different. Why do you think they say South Europe and North Europe? There's a reason for that. Some people from South Europe are Caucasian, but not all of them. If you take a good look at this, you're gonna notice there's another race. The Mediterranean people. By the way, those are the actual names of different race, not Europe, Africa, Asia. Now let's go to the pyramids people. This happened when you combine the extreme American stupidity with low IQ, wannabe race expert, and with extreme wokeism, and because the US is just a big mental asylum, you get those results. I heard a history teacher from the US say it's black because it's Africa, Even worse than this, he was thinking that Carthage was in the desert. By the way, I remind you, this is a history teacher. He's supposed to know geography. Can somebody please explain to me how your teachers in schools and colleges are more stupid than an average person outside the US? I don't understand how a country that is ranked #1 in the most educated country and have almost a 100 IQ can be that stupid, and even his teachers are worse. Maybe your first lesson in history needs to be this, and you need to put it in every classroom. By the way, I already know why you think it's a desert, and I already explained it in the first video. It's funny how all these wannabe race experts don't know this area is not a desert, especially the northern coast. And even worse, I bet you they don't even know where that name Berbers come from. Yeah, the Romans definitely documented that. Another trust me argument. Maybe you need to go to Google Image and search black immigrants who got deleted in this desert. Maybe they're gonna make you understand why they say Sub-Saharan Africa or South Sahara Africa. Why do you think everybody is avoiding that desert? Just a reminder that this desert is bigger than the US. Maybe if you were smart enough, you would realize that. The map doesn't always show reality. For example, Europe is just a little bit bigger than Australia, but on the map, it looked like it's huge. Do us a favor and stop teaching history in schools and colleges and instead change them with genders and pronouns. Y'all are experienced with those, and leave history alone. And I'll even go further than this, stop teaching geography too. Most of y'all don't know what's the difference between a country and a continent. And because you use those stupid terms like African American or European American or Asian American, that's why they think everything African is black and everything white is European. Let me simplify this for your small American brains. Race doesn't have a map, so he doesn't know what continent he's on. It's not like they reached this point and said, let me pull out my map and see where is Europe. Okay, this is not Europe, let's go back. As I said before, they care about land. Americans are so stupid they think Africa is a country, and because they are obsessed with the subject of race, they turn everything into a race, like the Arab League. Arab League got created in 1945 and didn't have nothing to do with a race. Stupid Americans took that and made it into a race. Americans turned continents into a race, religions into a race, geographical locations into a race, literally everything that didn't have anything to do with race into race. Let's imagine that Spain created the Spanish League and Mexico joined that. Does that mean that Mexicans are Spaniards right now? Do we have right now the Spanish race? Here's another information. Spanish is not a race. Even if Mexicans speak Spanish, they are not Spaniards. I want you to remember this. A lot of white people are from Europe, but not every white person is from Europe. I think you get my point. I just have one question. Where do you think Troy and Sinope are on the map? Do you think they were in Europe? But take a good look at the painting. You are right about one thing. Unlike those wannabe race experts that regurgitate anything they receive and don't know where that name barbarians come from in the first place, and even more stupid than that, they think they lived in the desert. Do you remember the fall of Western Rome? Who was responsible for it? A bunch of white people who lived from Gaul to Iberia to North Africa that were called by the Romans barbarians. You must be really stupid if you think Romans went in North Africa and found a bunch of black people. But you are American, so I don't expect you to be smart. First of all, because of tribalism rule, people tend to look like the people they are close to, and black slavery was the equivalent of oil or gas in today's market. So no, they didn't. They found the opposite of that. I didn't expect you to know this, but the coast of this area is not a desert at all. Not even close to a desert. Just like them, they have zero knowledge. They think Moorish were living in the desert. Not only that, they use the wrong version of the Moorish mosque. The Moorish mosque looked like this. Not like this. Throughout history, there's a reason nobody went south from North Africa. First people to do it are the Moorish, and they went there for black slavery. Just like I said, black slavery was looked at like oil or gas in today's market. And as you can see, the Moorish even established a trade roads for it and made deals with some of the black leaders of some tribes to slave other black tribes and sell them. And there's one thing we got from doing this. If you search this word in Google image, you're going to see only black people. By the way, I heard this from one of them in an interview on one of our national TV, and the interview goes like this. The only way you knew about them. It because you feel like you are less than white people, and you try to prove to white people that you have greatness by trying to find something in North Africa, because North Africa is the greatest area in Africa, and when you've done some research about the area, you found them.
And I'm not trying to be, and I'm from Africa. See, the thing that's different about me is I was born in Lagos. I was born in Lagos, okay? I was born on the continent of Africa. I would be upset if we built the pyramids and they were saying we didn't do it, but it ain't no fucking way we built the pyramids, man. This is what they didn't find one multi-level structure. Stop saying that shit. Lying to yourself. You know the biggest problem with saying that black people invented the pyramids? Let me tell you the biggest problem with that. My biggest issue. Yeah, that's the only reason they say that, TJ Wilson, because it was on the continent of Africa. As if that means anything. As if that means anything. Because it's on the continent of Africa, black people must have built it. Look at all the shit on the continent of Africa now. That fucking Asians and white. Here's my problem, okay? With black people saying they built the pyramids. It make it look like, oh, well, look what we did. Look what we did. We built the pyramids, so we ain't that bad. Because we built the pyramids, so we could do great things. And niggas think that they got all this greatness in them and shit. When you gotta work for that shit, you can't rest on your laurels.
You are allergic to the truth, and you have an inferiority complex, and you have such a horrible American knowledge. That's why you think this area is a desert, and you think people live in a desert. By the way, this area is the coldest area in Africa. So not only y'all exposing your low IQ American knowledge, but I noticed one thing. No other race does this. Black people are the only race that does this. You never gonna hear East Asians say, we built Taj Mahal because it's in Asia. They wouldn't, because they have pride and self-respect, and they are smart enough to know that being in Asia doesn't mean it's built by East Asian. If Americans had a brain, they would have did something as simple as a Google search, like white people in Africa. I bet you they would have said two areas, Southern Africa and Northern Africa. This book is written by an American in 1967. How can he have more knowledge than y'all today with all the technology? Sometimes they make a mistake and say Sub-Saharan Africa. You see, this is the problem. The second part of the statement is not a problem, but the first one is, why do you use that stupid logic? Since we are talking about white people in Africa, I want to show a clip.
In the United States, this black-white problem, like you've got in the United States, you have got nowhere in the Muslim countries. Where? Nowhere.
I'm just curious, how did he know that? Maybe he searched white people in Africa, because according to the Americans, Islam is a race. So I don't know how he knows that, but I'll answer he's questioned the reason it's different because of this. And that's why they look at normal in this area just like any Mediterranean country. It's good we have them there. Now let's use common sense to destroy your point. I know you don't have a lot of it in the US, but let's try. If North Africa was black, why we didn't have segregation just like those countries in Southern Africa? And I found another point that's going to destroy your point.
And despite having been here for generations, they usually don't speak any of the indigenous languages.
In fact, none of the white people that exist outside Europe speak indigenous language. Americans don't speak it. Australians don't speak it. None of them speak it. But the people that exist in North Africa do. Here an example.
Gina, من سمايا سكا جينا ونقالون ثياكي ذم دنيا ثنف بلي عينون فادو قسن جوجالاف وتسعة مسا كودش سون قالين الساعة عشي تمس دغادون قال يدعج من الطاس يفرار سيسن تالي سكويث دغا ثقالي ديارنا سلد كودش دغاني ثكيسن.
And another interesting fact is, most of them don't control the majority of the land, and we never had that issue to begin with. Only a few of them have control of some land. Trust me when I say this. If you are successful in this area, you earned it. So if he's rich, he earned it. If he owned a land, he earned it. Unlike other places, we have one rule in here. It's called, you get what you earn. Since y'all obsessed with DNA tests like a bunch of foster children searching for their original parents, hear my fourth argument. Why, when you say, you want to know how black you are, they only mention sub-Saharan Africa, and when they ask them about North Africa, they say it's the opposite. And what's the opposite of black? Exactly. As I said before, only black people do this. Tell me one other race that does this. I've never heard an East Asian get angry because they call him East Asian. By the way, tell me one thing they are trying to whitewash outside the area that I said have Caucasian. Trust me, I will destroy their arguments too. Just to let you know, I know how Egyptians looked. They were not black or white. Well, some of them were white, but not all of them. Americans are something special. They need to be studied. I don't know how they get 100 IQ. Like Americans make music about how stupid they are. But the worst thing that still bother me until this day, like how a history teacher doesn't know Carthage wasn't in a desert, I was able to destroy his arguments with just common sense. You know what's better? Just close those schools. Y'all learn nothing from them. And even if you do learn something, you're gonna learn more stupid stuff. So just close them. Like who told y'all? Islam is a race. Or continents are names for different races. And add this to the obsession with race. So it's just a horrible combination. That's why you get people like this, who think everything African is black, or Indians not Asian because they don't look like East Asian. And by the way, those are highly educated people and teachers. And I know why you do this, because historically North Africa was the best part about Africa. That's why you think you need to say North Africa was black so I can prove to the white people that I have greatness. I've even heard from some Americans that gypsies only exist in Europe, and others saying gypsies in West Asia and North Africa are from Europe. By the way, y'all do realize what happened was the opposite. Gypsies who exist in Europe came from two different places to Europe, from North Africa and from West Asia. And those gypsies that exist in North Africa behave the exact same way as those gypsies in Europe, throwing trash everywhere, taking their kids out of schools very early or not letting them go to school at all, and other stuff. And I bet y'all that this area have 25 times more gypsies than Europe, but since y'all think that the only reasons people exist in some areas are either from slavery or invasion, and while we are talking about gypsies, let's destroy that argument too. Did India invade the Mediterranean region, or are those gypsies from the Mediterranean region from slavery? Here's another reason. It's called immigration. I bet you this area looked totally different before it was a very popular place. Now let's talk about the Mediterranean people. Another race? Some people from South Europe look like this not because it's the weather or a different type of Caucasian. It's a different race. So they have gypsies and we have gypsies, and they have Mediterranean people and we have them too. That's not a big deal. But if they have a Caucasian and we have Caucasian like this, then that's a big problem. Focus on what I said. I said Caucasian, not European. Those white people that exist in Southern Africa are European because they came from Europe, not because they are white. Every race stops when they get forced to stop, because the most important thing for every race is called land. Just like I said before, a lot of white people are from Europe, but not every white person is from Europe. I'm just curious, who do you think they calling Caucasian in North Africa? By the way, I knew who they were calling Caucasian in North Africa, and I knew exactly where they were. And I knew you wouldn't have no idea since they are like 10% of the population in this area. Here's some examples of Caucasian plus other races that I talked about. And here's some videos.
السلام عليكم أصدقائي. جيتوه ليد هذه طيحت برشا مرات بالكاو. دونك اليوم غطست صبعي في الحبار، دونك لازمنا اليوم نربحوا بالضربة القاضية.
Some of those are the Caucasian, not the 90% of the people in this area, or the stupid American logic. Different types of Caucasian. They also tell you red hair in North Africa. Who do you think they are calling red hair? Maybe those ones. I knew about this. That's why I was able to pull all these videos and pictures, and I even know some of them by name. But y'all want to know what's more interesting about this? The indigenous, or the original people, or the red Indians to this land or area, are white people or Caucasian. And this is the reason why I say Arab. You know this benefited you. I didn't want those people to know that at all. And I knew this long time ago. I knew about gypsies. I knew about those white people, but I decided to keep that to myself. Until one of y'all decided to disrespect the wrong person. By the way, this guy is very famous in the Arab League, and I've never heard someone ask any question about him. They know he's normal to this area, just like those people are normal in Sudan and Somalia. So trust me, we all knew this before you decided to turn it into an Arab race, and I repeat again. I said Arab because I didn't want you to know nothing about this area, and also this map shows why they say Sub-Sahara Africa, and if you don't like that name you can change it to South Sahara Africa, and if this map wasn't enough reason for you, maybe this would be enough. That's the reason why they say Sub-Saharan Africa, not because they are trying to whitewash anything. And by the way, just to let you know, I'm not white or an American. I just speak English. How about focus on building Sub-Sahara Africa by your own hands instead of others' hands? Instead of making a joke out yourself to the whole world, how about build a highly rated colleges in Sub-Saharan Africa, so your people can study there instead of sending them to North Africa to study? Maybe you need to fix the starvation problem in Sub-Sahara Africa. And just to let you know, Sub-Sahara Africa take the number one in this. Take a moment and look at those maps. Or let's talk about the other things Sub-Saharan Africa take the number one in the world too. The extreme poverty. How about focus on fixing those problems instead of making yourself look like a big joke to the world? And maybe if you did this, those white people that don't care about you and you feel inferior to them will give you validation and admit you have greatness. And by the way, the whole world know this area is not black. Even people in China know this. Not only white people, or your other stupid argument about they are trying to whitewash because they are trying to hide our greatness. As I said, tell me one thing they are trying to do that too that's not white and I will make a video about it. Let's go quickly about some empires that existed in this area. Let's start with Carthage. Maybe you have an American small brain. But this is an accurate representation, and it's not in a desert. In fact, none of areas that was controlled by Carthage was in the desert. Now let's go to the Moorish. There's a painting of the Moorish in this Moorish castle, painted by people from that time. Did you notice one thing? Through history, it was only 2 directions from this area. The only people that went south were Moorish, because they want black slavery. That's why they went south. And build slavery roads, and build agreements with some black tribes to slave other black people and sell them. And we have some quotes or words that we say here that's going to prove this area is not black. Some of them are slang word. So who do you think they calling son of a slave? Well, let's just say put 2 and 2 together and figure that out. The first quote explains what happened to those women from black slavery. Do y'all realize that Egypt used to do to you what they do to horses, and let's not speak about what they did to women? And the Moorish used black people in mining and farming, and I said in part when we used to punish people and throw them in the desert. So can you guess what happened to those black people from slavery when we didn't need them? Exactly. We just throw them in that desert. But I have one question. Who do you think slaved black people the most? Take a guess. Exactly. It's black people. And if it wasn't for those black people, black slavery wouldn't exist. The reason why they did it, because they look at it from a tribe perspective, not from a race perspective, and that's why they did it. You know there's beef between some black tribes for different reasons, and one of those reasons are because they slaved some of their people and sold them. I'll give you an example. You can take what happened in Rwanda as an example of the conflicts between the tribes in sub-Saharan Africa, and the only people keeping peace in that area are a bunch of white people. And the reason why you made those types of race because you are stupid and you think you know better than anyone, and what make it worse, you have a big loud mouth and you don't know how to say, I don't know. You'll just start making conclusions and explanations with your stupid logic. But the funny thing is that both of these guys that I showed you are Americans, and both of them are more smart than the majority of the Americans that live right now. There's a reason why these videos exist, because people hear a lot of stupid things from Americans. Here's some examples of the stupid stuff I heard from Americans. And while we are talking about Carthage, I advise you to go and watch my video about the Phoenicians in this video. Trust it's going to give you a lot of information that you didn't know, including some geography lesson. Or this one, that made a video about barbarians and said that those people are the barbarians and they live in a desert. First of all, those are gypsies, not barbarians. They are gypsies just like this guy from the memes. And those are the barbarians. And they don't live in a desert, they live here. USA is obsessed with race, and race think about everything. Let me just tell you something. Many other areas of the world have something that's called tribalism. And here tribe think about everything. For examples, people marry from the same tribe. So did you think we farm that in this? And I'm just curious, where do you think we farm this? And maybe if you were smart enough, I wouldn't have those questions.
To delivery drivers from Domino's.
Oh, in Morocco. Oh, from here? From the area here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I don't know, like he's white. He's from Morocco.
Yeah,
He
well,
said that there's a lot of white people there.
yeah, in Morocco, yeah, a lot of white people. You find like black people, brown people.
Pero son finos, tienen pelo.
Who do y'all think he's calling black people? Maybe people that look like this. And some of these questions, I don't know how to even answer them. Like this one. Like, how do I even answer this question? He's talking like somebody can choose to be white or not. It's like asking, why is water wet? Or why the sky is blue? Or this question. Maybe they look like Caucasians because they are Caucasian. Who do you think they calling Caucasians when they said this? Do you think they calling him Caucasian? Or those gypsies? They told you. People that are gonna be in every part of Europe. Gonna be the exact same people that exist right here. I always say this. Knowledge is your responsibility, not my responsibility. I repeat again, I say Arab so I can cover this area so nobody knows anything. And when I heard that, I know exactly who they are calling Caucasian, and I know you wouldn't have no idea. You don't even know that we have snow. Y'all think this area is a desert, and y'all have zero knowledge about geography. In fact, y'all have zero knowledge about most things in life. It's like how a country that is ranked #1 in the most educated country in the world and have 100 IQ can be that stupid. No wonder why the USA export a lot of smart people from outside the USA. It's like they can't find a bunch of smart people in a huge population of 300 million. And of course, y'all don't know we have snow. So I didn't expect you to know about the 10% of the population in this area that are actually Caucasians. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say there's a race between blue and green and purple people. Who do you think going to get to this area before anyone? Exactly. Purple people have the easiest road to this area, while blue people have the most difficult road to this area, and the race stops when the land stops, not when the continents end. I don't know how y'all got into that conclusion about the weather and race. If you put a person who is used to a very cold weather in a very hot place, he's not going to like it, regardless of the race. Is Australia a very cold place? If you put a white person from England, for example, in this area in the summer, he's going to think it's hell. The same thing goes for East Asian from East Russia. But if you put a white person from Australia, he's going to think it's normal. There's a reason human body can get tanned, and the human body also needs the sun. And that's only going to change your skin, not your face structure or your DNA. I'm going to answer some of the questions that I heard get repeated in some websites like Quora. Is this area white? No, because 90% of this area is not white. Are the indigenous white? Yes, they are, and they don't live in the desert. As I said, if you had a brain, you would have known this, and you wouldn't be thinking that every Indian is from the Middle East. Maybe they look like Indians because they are Indians regardless of where they are. The Middle East is where a lot of these gypsies come from, and they have a lot of them. And North Africa also have a lot of them. Maybe if y'all had a brain, I wouldn't be explaining this. Maybe next time I would make a video about gypsies because they do the exact same thing they do in Europe. And here's the list. And even they drive the exact same car. And all they do is selling scrap metal and sniffing glue all the day and all night. Maybe next time I will make videos about them, just like you do in Europe, so you can know that North Africa have gypsies. By the way, when they count how many gypsies in Europe, they only count people who identify as gypsies, not the people who are gypsies but don't identify as one. So in simple words, there's more gypsies in Europe, especially in Southern Europe, than what they say. The number would be close to millions. And let me just tell you something interesting. There's more gypsies in North Africa than Caucasian, and they are in millions and millions. But somehow some people think that it's the other way around, and gypsies that are in North Africa came from Europe. And they live in the slums too, just like Europe. I still don't understand how y'all are obsessed with race, but you have no clue about it. And y'all talk like white people or Caucasian agreed where to go and where not go. Or like they have a map to know where they are. Since people existed on this earth, they only cared about land. And every race have one rule. It's this: we go as far as we can and we stop when the land stop. This is the reason why they say Caucasian in North Africa, because that's where they stopped. Just think about it for a second. They crossed all that distance and they're going to stop right here. They're going to pull up the map and say, oh, we need to go back. This is not Europe. But this is expected from Americans. Just listen to this.
I hate to sound like a broken record on this channel, but I just don't get why people get so hung up over sun protection. That's all your skin is, man.
Yeah.
That's all your skin is, man. Like, if you just look at the regions of the world, it will teach you that. Like, I'm not the smartest Negro in the world, but I know that your pigment is sun protection.
I extremely doubt you have any knowledge about any region in the world, and there's multiple videos that show how stupid Americans are. And what's more embarrassing is that you'll try to sound smart. That's why you end up saying the most stupid things ever. But you are right about one thing, it's this.
I'm not the smartest Negro in the world, but I know.
But you are just the typical American. So it's not a surprise. USA are like a huge mental asylum and a huge clown show. Y'all made continents into a race, like every race in the world have a map. And when you found out that North Africa have Caucasian DNA, the exact same DNA found in Europe, y'all made up even more stupid stuff. Oh, there's different type of Caucasian. Let's take the gypsies and Arab League as Caucasian too. Like, imagine if I made something like this. Oh, there's different type of red Indians. You know this doesn't make sense, because race share the exact same skin color and facial features. As you can see clearly in this examples, skin is not the only thing. Southern Europe have people like this, not because of the weather, or the moon, or the wind, or the land. Didn't they tell you, Caucasian and Mediterranean people? So right now you see the difference between them. Like I said, when they said Caucasian in North Africa, I know you wouldn't have no clue about what they're talking about. Because not only they are minority, but they only exist in certain areas. Those areas don't conclude the desert. Here an example. Don't Southern Europe have people that look like this? And here other examples. When the DNA said Caucasian in North Africa, they meant that's why they say you are black, because you have a certain percentage from sub-Sahara Africa. Well, pointing it's the opposite in North Africa, and those Caucasian are really old in this land. Older than Caucasian in America or Australia or other places. They are as old as those white people in Europe. Do me a favor. Learn geography before you start talking about race, because you have no clue what you are talking about, and you act like you do. When this person said this, lands washed by the Mediterranean, he meant this land. And here's some examples how it's gonna look. And 58 million. That's a huge amount of white people. And where do you think they're gonna get food and water from? From air. American brain is something really special. Like, how did you manage to turn this into a race? And you know this stupid American ideology is the reason why they think everything is African must be black. And this is why they always use. It's because it's in Africa. By the way, I already knew about them. You didn't tell me something new. Just take a look at Quora and see how many people are asking about them. Like I said, I already knew about them, and I knew some of them with name. Every example I showed you I knew about them years ago. And I kept all that to myself all these years. This is the reason why I said, don't search the indigenous people in this area. You wouldn't like it. So how about you do like me? And say Arab and move on with your life. And it looked like they are the only people that knew about gypsies in North Africa. You'll do realize your videos get translated and expose more stupidity from Americans. And by the way, the comments on this videos were something special to say the least. This showed me how low your self-respect. How about think how can you stop starvation in Sub-Sahara, and maybe you can get people respect, and to not get comments like, you don't know how to stop starvation in Sub-Sahara, but you think you build Carthage. And just like I said, learn geography before you start talking about race. Do you actually think that because the Roman went to Africa, then they must have seen black people? Are you really sure not people like this? Are you sure this is the coast you were talking about? And the Moorish weren't like this? You do realize that deserts stopped a lot of people.
Concept of a border for the age. Often they were defined by geological features such as the Rhine River or the Sahara Desert.
Like I said, didn't I tell you don't search the indigenous people to this land? and Arab is better. I'm gonna keep it simple, before Romans or any empire. This area have the exact same people. So Romans and Carthage would look like each other. And by the way, here are some examples of Phoenicians. Y'all obsessed with DNA tests, but y'all don't know why she looked like that while having 80% from West Asia. Well, let me explain this too. This area to West Asia is like North Africa to Africa. This is why I say race doesn't have to do nothing with continents or the weather. Well, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and share the video for the algorithm. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'd rather you ask me than ask one of your brain-dead teachers. And if you found one of them asking about them in Quora, just put the link to my video. Goodbye.